So that it has to start from possibly a feeling that everything is not all right. You know, I'm sure in your own daily life, whether you're in the classroom or whether you're in the hostel, you'll probably see that something is not okay. But most of the time, what we tend to do is to accept it and say, "Ki theek hai, ye chalta hai. This is not my job. Somebody else has to do it." Okay? If the mess hall is not clean enough, for instance, you would say the persons who are contracted to do the cleaning, they should have done a better job. Maybe you'll just complain and then go ahead with it. But if you're of a leadership type, if you're of that personality, you just do not accept something that is below par. And it's not, again, only for you, it affects everybody else who's using that mess hall or using their facility. So you'll say, let me try and bring about some change there. And that drive makes one take that responsibility. So fundamental is in terms of taking responsibility, which has impact on others also, and then also going about and getting change. But it's not enough to be convinced by oneself. In most things, in order to bring about change, you have to involve others because they are also affected by it. You have to involve the people who are responsible for it. You have to get involved with people who have the resources and who have the authority over that particular subject. And you must find a way to influence them so they can move things in the right way. So therefore, the issue of how, as a leader, you deal with people around you, both in terms of bringing the change and also to influence people, becomes very critical. And this is where, if we try and find if there's a structure and a pattern and certain behaviors that will give you more success, one can possibly develop one's own leadership style, which then becomes important, helps one become a little more successful as you go by. Now, generally when you talk about leaders, there's always this question, are leaders born or leaders made? There's different opinions about it. We all read about it so many times, and there can be, there's no right or wrong answer here. But it's my personal belief that, taking from what Shakespeare said in another context in Twelfth Night about greatness, I'm just paraphrasing it to make it look for leadership also. There are some people who are born leaders. You see them taking initiative in every area, getting things done, and by public acceptance or consent, they are named as, yes, it's good to trust so-and-so to do this job. Why? Because he or she can accomplish it. So that's a natural feeling of appreciation they get out of the personality type they are and the fact that they are that way. Others, or most others, one would say, have to work at it. To achieve, whether it's greatness or to achieve leadership, there is a lot of effort that is to be put in. And many of us are in that situation where we have to learn, then we have to deliver, we have to change our own behaviors, influence our own attitudes towards people, get them to respond to us in the right way, and then make things happen. So, but then still one is successful, and therefore one is a leader. And some, as you can easily imagine, have leadership thrust upon them. I mean, recently I read in the paper that our own Prime Minister is probably in a similar situation, said in a lighter vein. But then, the leadership was practically thrust upon him because he was not elected to become the Prime Minister or even the leader of the party. But once you're in the hot seat, then you have to definitely take the responsibility up, and either you function well or you don't function well. But the issue is, it's on you. So therefore, the issue is, therefore, if one of us fall in any of these three categories, then the point is that it's really a behavioral aspect, and anyone can possibly attempt to be a leader if we have basics in terms of, skill, knowledge, competence, whatever you call it, or also the commitment to get involved, that we are just not saying, this is not my job, this is not for me to do. So the moment you have certain competence and a commitment, I think that behavioral aspect of leadership can come in, and that's something which we can all aspire for. It is really open to everyone, and that's my personal belief, and I hope you will agree with that. Like leadership styles, there are also different types of leaders. By hard dint of work in any organization, by position, you go from a research associate to a lecturer to an assistant prof, as prof to prof. You can move in positions. Now, the important thing to realize is that in every position that one is in, regardless of where it is in the hierarchy, leadership behavior and leadership role is possible. It's a matter of, again, having the skill and having the interest to get committed to do it. One cannot simply say it's only the director in the IIT, he has all the powers and he's at the head of the organization, therefore only he can be the leader. Yes, he has to be a leader in that context of IIT as an institution. But every single department, every aspect of it, whether it is physical or whether it's in terms of the pedagogy, I'm sure there are professors who have to play a role. Similarly, students themselves, in terms of the responsibility that they take up, you may just be, as a secretary in the mess or in the gymkhana. So sure, you take leadership and you have to get things done. So it is possible and it is open. There are, of course, in society you get the various gurus, the various people who are in the arts and cinema, theatre, etc., who, because of their personality and their charisma, they get the leadership position. Just because others are willing to become followers. So if 10 people get together and call somebody a guru, then he has the leadership mantle thrust upon them. So therefore, then they listen to what he says or aspire to live in his shadow or in his opinions. We of course saw, like in the pictures earlier, you have the Mandelas and the Gandhis who, by dint of their moral strength and the fact that they reflect very big human character of a high order in society, that they get to those leadership positions and are able to inspire people. And recently, Anna Hazare, for instance, has been able to inspire a whole lot of people who otherwise would not have bothered about corruption to get onto the street and then, to really support that movement and do it. Purely from strength of moral character, not because of any other reason. So that's one way of doing it. And in the field of knowledge, I'm sure you have a lot of examples in terms of, famous scientists or Nobel Prize winners, you take it. Mastery in a subject by itself also brings in a tremendous amount of credibility, and people who are particularly interested in that field would obviously take that person to be a leader, and that again can be expressed. There are people about sportsmen, people who write competitive exams and then get into it. By the very fact that you get into IIT, for instance, after such a rigorous entrance exam, would probably make you something of a leader in the community in which you came from, whether it's family, whether it's friends, or whether it's your other school friends who did not get in. So you get a halo around it. The point in all this is the fact, again, to say that it's a role and a responsibility that is open to anyone, if only one wants to use one's competence and one's commitment. Now, there are different ways in which leadership styles are also expressed, and these are some of the common ways. They're all fairly commonsensical, so I wouldn't spend too much time on them. The directing one is, of course, in terms of telling everybody what to do, whether you're a drill master, whether you're a person as a subedar in the army. So you have to basically direct people to do this, do that, and everybody follows blindly. That's one way of exercising leadership. There are appropriate reasons why that works. The coaching is a little more diverse, where you have to enable the individual person to develop and grow. So you have to sort of teach them the basic skills. You have to help them to teach which strategies work, which do not work, whether it's on the playing field or whether it's on any other area, and therefore you help the person to develop and grow. So that's one style that the leadership can employ. Then what can be called a supporting style is getting more involved, not just telling or directing the person like a coach, but actually getting involved in terms of along with the person. This in any teams when you see, so you will just don't have a person giving orders. In a team, whether it's a sports team or you're doing as a team mountain climbing, the person who's a leader also supports the entire team in terms of giving them the knowledge what to do, getting involved with them in terms of the actual down-to-earth activities that are involved, and therefore help them play the game or accomplish the result. And in large organizations especially, where there are a lot of people involved, it's not possible then to just use any of these styles. Then delegation becomes exceedingly important. And delegation simply means that help everybody play a role with respect to their competency and their responsibility, but still keep everything together. So they are working to a common objective. So that becomes another style. Now one can ask this question, that if there are different styles are there, is there any one style that is better, which is superior to the others, can make leaders more successful? But really speaking, it depends more on the people who are involved and on the situation. So the best leadership style is that obviously which is successful, And that successful style depends on the situation itself, in terms of what type of leadership behavior is called for, and what type of followers or team members are there with whom one has to achieve the result. These two dimensions become critical, which is what we call as situational leadership. Situational leadership is essentially in terms of what is the situation, what is the kind of appropriate team members are there, and which style is to perform. So I just illustrated a few which can obviously tell you what kind of leadership style is important. If there's a sudden fire somewhere, you obviously would not want people taking too much time to put it out. So maybe someone who takes charge, whoever it is nearest to it, gets the fire extinguisher, somebody calls up the fire station and directs people to immediately put that fire out, accomplish the task. So that situation calls probably for a directing kind of method. Similarly, you can see the other styles that are appropriate, whether you're, teaching somebody the basics of arithmetic or mathematics, or teaching somebody to cook a new dish. In terms of a team situation in a game, or in large organizations where you're working with experts who know what they are supposed to do and they have to work together. So your delegating style probably is appropriate to make it happen. Now the leadership success and the performance ultimately will depend on both these aspects, both for the leader and for the team of followers or the team members, as you may call them. Competence as well as commitment. Now these of course are very clear. So one comes from the basis of knowledge, skills, the kind of training one has gone through. Those all are open to every individual. But that alone is not enough unless it is applied. And that is where the commitment part comes in. In almost every task that you take, not only in an organization as a company, but even if you take it in a classroom or take it in a laboratory or on the playing field, it's very important to feel that you have people who not only know the subject or know the game, who have the skills to play it, but you also need the commitment, that they have the commitment that we must win, we must put in the effort, we must practice, we must be able to do this. The leader is the one who is supposed to make all this happen and help the team members therefore achieve their goals. Therefore, we need both these to happen. And a lot of the commitment actually comes from within. So it's not something that you can really teach, okay? Because it's not a matter of simply offering an incentive and somebody becomes committed. It's much more than that. A commitment has to come from, one's own individual ego, so to speak. I feel confident that, I know the subject, I know this game, I want to play well, I want to win. That must come from within. And therefore that motivation is extremely important. So if you have the right combination of competence and the commitment, the skills as well as the desire and the drive to exceed, that is the kind of combination which helps a leader to achieve great things. Now in an organizational setting, which is what I wanted to refer to, this depends both on the level at which the individuals or the organization are in, so that the leader can apply appropriate styles. Now this is again a very common way that when you start in a new organization, you still don't know the ropes. You have to learn how the organization functions. You don't know all the rules. You don't know what you're allowed to do or not allowed to do. So it's a learning process there. So in that sense, the competence level may be a little low for a beginner or a trainee, for instance, when you're doing orientation. But you're extremely eager to learn because you joined that organization for that reason, that you want to do well, you want to succeed. So there's great commitment from oneself, but the competency level is low. So in this kind of situation, you'll have to see what kind of leadership style would work with someone whom we can call a beginner. The next stage is after the person has achieved certain level of competence, maybe a few years or certain time on the job, some skills have been learned, and the way the company or the department works is well known. Therefore, you're more confident of yourself. But at the same time, it could happen that you get a little frustrated because you do not have all the authority. The authority is still with the seniors in the department or in the company.